Parker J. Palmer's Let Your Life Speak begins with a quiet confession: most people are trained to live their lives backward. We decide what we should become based on expectations, rewards, fear, or prestige, and then try to force ourselves into that shape. Palmer tells his story not as a success arc but as a series of collapses, because it was only through failure, depression, and disillusionment that he learned a different truth. Vocation is not something you choose, it is something you listen for. The real task of life is not self-invention, but self-discovery. Early in the book, Palmer describes how he chased roles that looked meaningful on the outside but felt hollow inside. Teaching positions, leadership roles, public recognition, all of them aligned with what society praised, yet each step pulled him further away from himself. The lesson here is uncomfortable but practical. When your outer life is disconnected from your inner truth, no amount of achievement will make you feel whole. If you feel persistent exhaustion, resentment, or numbness, Palmer suggests treating those not as flaws but as signals that something essential is being ignored. One of the most actionable ideas Palmer introduces is the concept of listening to your life instead of trying to dominate it. Rather than asking, "What do I want to do with my life?" he asks, "What is my life trying to do with me?" This reframes purpose from a heroic act of willpower into a practice of attention. He urges you to observe recurring patterns in your energy, curiosity, and resistance. What consistently draws you in? What reliably drains you? Over time, those patterns speak more truthfully than abstract goals ever could. Palmer spends significant time on depression, not as a detour but as a teacher. He recounts a period when his inner life collapsed so completely that he could barely function. Instead of framing depression as something to conquer, he presents it as a brutal but honest messenger. Depression stripped away his false self, the version built to please others, and left him face to face with his limits. The actionable takeaway is radical. When life shuts you down, it may be protecting you from living a lie you can no longer sustain. A recurring theme in the book is the danger of what Palmer calls functional atheism, living as though everything depends on you. This mindset pushes people to overwork, overperform, and override their own nature. Palmer argues that true vocation respects limits. If you are introverted, you are not meant to live as an extrovert. If you are reflective, you are not meant to thrive in constant urgency. Paying attention to your limits is not weakness, it is fidelity to who you are. Palmer also explores how fear distorts our choices. Fear of scarcity, fear of disapproval, fear of being ordinary. These fears often masquerade as practicality. He challenges the reader to notice when fear is driving decisions and to distinguish it from genuine responsibility. One actionable practice he suggests implicitly through his stories is naming your fears honestly, without trying to eliminate them. Fear loses much of its power once it is seen clearly rather than obeyed blindly. Community plays a quiet but crucial role in Palmer's philosophy. He warns against seeking advice from people who do not know how to listen. Instead, he describes circles of trust, relationships where others do not fix or advise, but reflect your truth back to you through attentive presence and honest questions. The practical implication is this: not everyone deserves access to your becoming. Choose companions who can hold space for your unfolding without trying to control it. Another central insight is that vocation is not a job title. Palmer insists that your calling is an expression of identity, not a role. You can live your vocation in many forms over a lifetime. This frees you from the anxiety of finding the one perfect path. The question becomes not, "Am I in the right career?" but, "Am I showing up as my true self in the life I am living right now?" That shift alone can reduce enormous pressure. Palmer draws on the metaphor of an acorn becoming an oak tree. The acorn does not decide to become something else, nor does it rush its growth. It contains its destiny from the beginning. Likewise, you are not empty, waiting to be filled with purpose. You already carry your form within you. The work is patience, trust, and protection from environments that stunt your growth. Action here looks like designing a life that supports your nature instead of constantly fighting it. The book repeatedly returns to the idea that wholeness is more important than perfection. Palmer argues that many people try to amputate parts of themselves to succeed, suppressing tenderness, doubt, or creativity. Over time, this creates inner division and quiet despair. He invites the reader to integrate all parts of themselves, even the inconvenient ones. Practically, this means asking which parts of you are currently exiled and what it would look like to welcome them back. Palmer is clear that listening to your life does not mean withdrawing from responsibility or hardship. True vocation often involves difficulty, sacrifice, and patience. The difference is that the struggle feels meaningful rather than self-betraying. When your work aligns with your inner truth, suffering does not disappear, but it stops feeling pointless. This distinction helps you evaluate whether pain is a signal to quit or simply part of honest growth. One of the most subtle but powerful teachings in the book is learning to wait. Palmer critiques the modern obsession with speed and clarity. Some truths only reveal themselves slowly, through seasons of uncertainty. He encourages readers to resist premature decisions driven by anxiety. Action here means allowing ambiguity without forcing conclusions, trusting that clarity often follows commitment, not the other way around. As the book progresses, Palmer emphasizes that becoming who you are meant to be is not a one-time revelation but a lifelong conversation. You will mishear your life sometimes. You will drift. You will return. The goal is not consistency but faithfulness. Each time you realign, you practice listening more deeply. This reframes mistakes not as failures, but as part of learning the language of your own soul. In the final sections, Palmer offers a quiet form of hope. He suggests that the world does not need you to be louder, faster, or more impressive. It needs you to be more yourself. When people live from their true nature, their work becomes grounded, humane, and trustworthy. Change happens less through grand gestures and more through embodied integrity. By the end of Let Your Life Speak, the reader is left not with a plan but with a posture. A way of standing in the world with curiosity instead of force. The actionable heart of the book is simple but demanding: pay attention, honor your limits, listen to your pain and joy, and stop trying to live someone else's life. In doing so, you allow your life to speak, and slowly, unmistakably, it tells you who you are.